One of our valued guests here, Dan Perry, international affairs analyst, former chairman of the Foreign Press Association, and current managing partner of Thunder 11. Thanks for being with us, Dan. Look, first on this concept at large of how, even if we just look inside Israel proper of residents, from Israel's Jews and Arab residents, I mean, they're tuned into completely different information sources, largely. Social media, I know, plays a huge part as well. I think one example that we'll touch on here was this road rage incident that resulted in the shooting of a 19-year-old, Arab kid, essentially, from up north. My accounts and people I've talked to, I mean, virtually all the Arab citizens of Israel, probably the Palestinians too, knew about this within an hour, and it took about a day or so for sort of the rest of Israel to truly catch up with this. Not everyone, obviously, but, is this a situation, in other words, ripe for misunderstandings, for strife? How do you see the sort of the media environment that surrounds us all here?
Well, the media environment reflects the social environment, and Israel is a highly fragmented society with different groups that have different priorities, different aspirations, different cultures and languages, and therefore different media organs that serve them, different echo chambers in social media, and consequently different understandings of reality and what's important.
Yeah, I think there's a key term there, the echo chamber and our perceptions. Look, on this Gaza topic, this is definitely one of the biggest triggers, or sensitive subjects, obviously, for wider conflict, perhaps. How do you see this Gaza issue, and what options are on the table? We're talking about this inevitable sort of war with Gaza. What's looming over our heads?
The situation in Gaza is obviously bad. Like so many issues confronting Israel, there is no good option. So as regards Gaza, like with the other issues, one seeks the least bad option. Obviously, it's bad. Gaza is run by Islamic fundamentalist terrorist groups. The primary victims are 2 million people of Gaza, and Israel has to suffer periodic volleys of rockets coming from these terrorist groups that probably want to provoke Israel into war against their own people. Clearly bad. Something must be done. An invasion of Gaza is a thing. Therefore, must it be done? I think most accounts assess that an invasion of Gaza, to demilitarize it, to clear out Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and perhaps to set it up for a handing back over to the Palestinian Authority, would cost thousands of lives in Gaza and at least hundreds of the lives of Israeli soldiers. So is that the least bad option? I think viewers need to decide.
Yeah, fair estimate. I know that was the real topic of debate around the war in 2014. Was this the moment that Israel would decide to pay that price? Didn't happen yet. Look, recently we saw this in Jerusalem too, around Al-Aqsa and the Temple Mount and the strife. I think the perception of what was happening there, whether you were getting fired up about it or not, depended largely on what news source you were taking in, who you were listening to there. Was that a good example, perhaps, of how situations can be told in different ways and have huge outcomes and consequences?
Well, of course. I mean, I think the Jewish Israeli public, by and large, doesn't quite understand the visceral degree to which Palestinians, even who are not religious fanatics, care about the Temple Mount, and also the effectiveness of the propaganda that Arab media and Arab activists and Muslim activists over the years have brought to bear on the narrative that Israel wishes to destroy the Haram al-Sharif on the Temple Mount and build the third temple. And of course, some fanatical Jews do, but that is not really Israel's plan. Yet, media can be very effective, propaganda can be nefarious, and it really has worked. So much of the Muslim nation at large is genuinely up in arms over this, and a lot of Jewish Israelis don't understand how, when they add fuel to this fire, they are playing with fire.
Who's winning? I mean, sometimes it seems obvious to us, and I hate to put it in terms of winning, losing, but I mean, who seems to be playing that game better? Doesn't feel like it's the Israeli narrative that emerges, that has the spotlight at times that we wish it would.
Are you talking about the Temple Mount in Jerusalem?
I mean, this being one example, maybe this is a conflict that's gone on for decades, even the sort of clash of narrative, especially in the age of social media. Is Israel behind the ball in some degree on this issue?
I'm a bit of an outlier on this question because Israel, the governments of Israel, most of the right-wing governments, but really all the governments, since '67 have been carrying out a series of policies that most of the world opposes. And yet, despite claims that Israel's propaganda is bad and its messaging is bad, look at the facts. Yeah. Israel's a major world economy. It's a tech superpower. No one's kicking it out of the West Bank. It chose to leave Gaza. It is welcomed to the bosom of nations. I think Israel's doing rather well for a country that's carrying out policies that are so offensive to pretty much the entire planet.
I only chuckle because it's refreshing
the
to hear.
messaging,
It's refreshing.
something is good. Maybe it's the messaging.
Yes, yes.
And by the way, Netanyahu, for all the faults one might attach to him, is a brilliant messenger. I've rarely seen a better spokesman for a flawed policy in all my travels as a foreign correspondent.
Dan Perry, always eye-opening and insightful to have you in the studio. Thanks for joining on this one.
My pleasure.